Hello, everyone. Welcome to Melissa's Musings, Featured Friend Friday. I'm excited to have my friend Stephanie Weaver on with us today, so I'm waiting for Facebook to catch up with me. I'm always like a little bit too speedy for the Facebooks. So let's see where we're at here. Come on, Facebook. So as you guys know, I am Melissa Steele, real estate agent extraordinaire here in San Diego and nationwide. And, okay, here, Stephanie Weaver wants to be in your video. This is like, yes! I'm always doing my Facebook dance, like trying to put energy into the interwebs for it to work. Good morning, Lucas. Thank you for joining us today. So we're talking about a really interesting topic, and I'm excited to introduce my amazing friend here, Stephanie. How you doing, Steph? Are you figuring out?
I'm good. No, I just posted the link to the thing we're talking about, and now I'm going to put that screen away. So I'm going to focus 100% on you. Hello, everybody.
Amazing. So tell the audience a little bit about you and how amazing you are.
Hi. I'm so amazing. So I'm the author of 3 books. The most recent book is called The Migraine Relief Plan. I'm a health and wellness coach and a writer and a speaker coach for TED Style Talks. And I've known Melissa for a couple of years through kind of a little local mastermind group of female business entrepreneurs. So I'm excited to be here today.
Yay. And we were actually talking about, our topic, what we wanted to chat about today. And we were going back and forth, and Stephanie texted me about this docuseries called Wild Wild Country.
Yep.
And it's something I actually just recently finished watching myself, and I was like, ooh, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
I got very excited.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the docuseries.
Yeah.
You actually did an awesome job explaining it on the phone.
So it's a 6-part series about real events. So it's a documentary series. These 2 filmmakers who are brothers found out about this really crazy story that happened in Central Oregon, out in the desert. This Indian guru moved his followers and bought this huge ranch out in the desert to create this utopian community in the 1980s. And
he moved them from India.
He moved them from India. So he had an ashram in Pune, India, and they were looking for a place, and they chose the United States because of our Constitution and our separation of church and state. And it was so the series has unbelievable documentary archival footage just from the ashram and that community, because they filmed constantly. There's current talking head interviews with some of the people that you see footage of from 30 years ago. And law enforcement, because law enforcement ends up getting involved. It was like the largest wiretapping case in U.S. history, the largest bioterror attack in U.S. history. And basically, most people don't know anything about it. So I was alive and a grown-up in the 80s and somehow completely missed the story. And I was trying to figure out, I know I didn't really have a TV back then, and I know I probably wasn't paying that much attention to current events, but I mean, it was on national news a lot. And
when you actually start to watch the docuseries, you're like, how the heck did I miss this?
I know, exactly. You're like, how did I not ever hear anything about this? And I made myself not look anything up while I was watching the series, because even though they sort of tell you at the beginning how it all turns out, you still are like, I don't want to ruin it. I don't want to ruin the story. So I was on the edge of my chair for 6.5 hours, if that's possible. And
that's how we were too. We watched we
binged it. Absolutely. It was like, how many can we stand to watch at one time? And then we know we need to go to bed. And so I felt first of all, it's an incredible piece of art. Just the editing, the footage they got, the way they crafted the story, the way they crafted each episode. It doesn't feel too long. I mean, if it doesn't win massive awards, it really should, because it's an incredible piece of filmmaking. And the story is amazing, and the people in it are incredible. Like, they're just all these great characters. The local people are just amazing characters. And so there's just, I mean, like, the one guy is his father started Nike. I mean, there's just like all these crazy.
Oh, I know. It's such a cool, there is a lot of American history within this one story. And then it's fascinating to watch it and see it all unfold. So I love, great summary.
Thank you.
Awesome job on that. So for those of you who haven't watched it, get it on your list, because it is a great docuseries. It's fascinating. And conceptually, what the guru was trying to achieve is actually something a lot of us have probably thought of in, at some point in our life, like what would a utopian society be like? And that's ultimately what his goal was. But because of what ended up happening and resulting, it ended up not, we won't ruin the story for you, but it ended up not going that way. And it brought up a really important question for Stephanie that I found fascinating.
Yeah. So the question that it brought up for me is, why are we so attracted to the idea of having a guru in our life? And you might be watching this and saying, well, I don't have a guru. Like, I don't follow some Indian guy. I don't do yoga. I don't do meditation. And that's sure. That's probably true for most people, that we don't have a literal guru. But if you start to think about your life, there may well be people that you look to give you direction, right? And so the idea of, whether that's a religious leader like a pastor or a priest or someone in an imam or whatever church or your synagogue leader. And okay, so maybe you're not a religious person. Maybe you've aligned yourself with a politician or a political party or a movement lately, right? You have a hat that's a particular color, or you're marching on an ongoing basis, or whatever that is, right? Or the other sort of way that we align with gurus is, celebrities, pop stars. And some of those can be creatives, right? Someone that you just really respect their work. And then you find out, like, there's all these, Me Too stories continually come out. So yesterday it was Morgan Freeman, a couple weeks ago it was Jeffrey Tambor, and there was a bunch of news about that whole thing this week that I was reading. And we have this, this desire to hold these people kind of above us, right? And to look at them and say, oh, well, they're above me and I look up to them. And then we can't let go of that image when we find out that they're human, right? We find out that they've done these terrible things, or
we've brought them up on this pedestal, and now we're not willing to believe what we're hearing.
Right. And so the question that it brought to mind for me was, why is it a human tendency to want to place your life in the trust of or the belief in another human being? Like, I personally don't think it's a problem to place your trust in a higher power, because that's not human, right? But why is it that we seem so interested and attracted to, or it's people that follow, the Kardashians, or, and then, have plastic surgery to look like them, or, you can think of a million examples as soon as you sort of expand your idea of what a guru is.
And I like that you just distinguished too, because right now, for those of you who are very religious or who focus on a certain energy or power, this is not what we're talking about. We're talking about the people who really put a lot of trust in another human being, and then kind of blindlessly follow this human being into whatever they're doing, whether or not the decision is right or wrong on what they would have been raised, ethically.
Right. So it's not a critique of religion. That's a good distinction. So it's the idea of, because there's been many, like, pastors of big churches that have kind of fallen, and you find out that they had a mistress, or they paid for an abortion or whatever, and then people are just crushed and don't know what to do with themselves, when that's not about the Christian faith. It's about the human person who is at the top of that chain or that pyramid. So that's what I'm talking about and thinking about. And I think the reason that we are attracted to it is because life's messy, right? And it's gray. It's not black and white. And, it's so much easier if I just follow this person. And so when you watch this documentary, the thing that was fascinating about him, and I think the reason that they achieved what they did out in the desert, was because these were very bright, well-educated people. They were wealthy, educated Westerners who came to India because they weren't happy in their lives. So they had a whole legal team, and they had engineers, and they had all these people that could do all these amazing things out in the desert and kind of transform it.
That was my favorite part of it. I was like, wow, they built that city in like a week.
It was really phenomenal. But part of it was, these are smart people, right? And so why were those very smart people so willing to move across the world and then move to Oregon and kind of follow this really crazy idea, when you kind of take a step back and you think, why is this? I think it's so appealing for someone else to say, I have the answer to your problems. Right. And you go, oh, thank God, I don't have to figure it out for myself. This guy or this woman has the answer to me, and it can be, it can be a female healer. It can be, there's lots of people I could look at and say in my own life that I have at times put faith in. Like, oh, if I just follow so-and-so's path or so-and-so's book, or I'll feel better. And I think that's what's so dangerous about it, in the sense that in the case of this, this story that, the Netflix documentary, I mean, there was this very nice lady, this housewife from Perth, Australia, who ends up going to jail for attempted murder. And you're thinking, I bet when she left her house in Australia, that's not how she thought her story was going to turn out, right? So
yeah, when she was leaving to go to a utopian society of peace, love, and happiness, yeah, exactly. I'm sure she wasn't expecting her results to be prison.
Right. So, so that's like an extreme version, and you might be watching and thinking, well, I would never do that. But it is a really fascinating kind of cautionary tale about the appeal of following someone else to their utopia or their ideas. And so I think that the reason that it's dangerous, there's a couple things I came up with. One is that you stop thinking for yourself, right? And whether that's, you're not questioning the political party that you're following, or you're not questioning the things you're hearing from the front of your religious organization that weekend, or you're not questioning, maybe I don't need plastic surgery, right?
Yeah, and side note too, it's not even like a matter of questioning. It may just be ignorant, like choosing ignorance at that point too. Like, you're so enrolled in this human being for what you believe they stand for. And then when you start to get these conflicting messages, it's almost like our internal filing cabinet full of shit, right? It's like, instead of pulling up stuff on ourselves, it's like, oh no, that can't be true because I've got this other experience of this human being that's so much different.
Right.
So I'm going to continue to trust, you know what I mean? So it's, once we've invested that trust too, it's really hard to like break that.
It's really
and we see
hard.
it all the time, like in people who are taking themselves to riots for a certain political party, and things that would be totally uncustomary of them to do.
Right.
But they're enrolled in doing it because they're so enrolled in this human being and what they feel like their vision is.
Yeah, and I can't remember, there's a term for that. I can't remember if it's a mathematical term or something I learned in statistics, but it has to do with, you've kind of doubled down so many times that you think this time it's going to work. So you can't say no, because you've just invested so much and you've gone so far down that road. And so your logic and your reason do kind of go out the window. The other thing I thought about is, and kind of the riot is a great example, then you start to make decisions that aren't in your best interest, right? So, there's a couple of many examples in the documentary, but, thinking about, people that do like have plastic surgery to look like a celebrity, and they spend all their money and they lose their relationships and they're so invested in that. Or people that, vote a certain way, and then it turns out that politician is actually not doing things that are going to be helpful to them. And this isn't about politics specifically, but it is interesting to think about all the ways people will make these decisions, or they'll give too much money to their church that they really can't afford because their pastor keeps telling them that this is the way to God, and you need to make sure you're tithing. And, whatever those decisions are, if they're not in your best interest, you're the only person who can look out for that, right? And then the last thing I thought of that was kind of a danger with this is that, you're fulfilling that person's vision, right? You're not fulfilling your vision and your destiny, right? I believe we all have a purpose here on earth, and we all have a reason for being here. And if I'm following you, Melissa, because you're so incredible, and I'm just waiting for you to post another one of these daily musings so I can know how to live my life that day, I'm not thinking about my energy and my greatness and and not that your daily musings aren't worth following, because obviously I'm here, but
no, of course. But then it's like, and waste is the wrong word. Like, hi guys. Yeah, waste is the wrong word that I'm trying to use. But like, then you, in my opinion, are like your vision is being wasted away.
Right.
There's no intention, there's no energy there, there's no commitment there. You've fully committed to what my vision is and what my intention is, and therefore you've totally backburnered yours.
Yeah.
So that is a huge risk, I feel like.
Yeah, and that's not to say that there might not be like somebody that just joined as a musician, and so it just makes me think of an example like that person might be invited to collaborate on a project, and it might be a really incredible project, and it might be their next thing that they're supposed to do, right, to further their gifts out in the world. But maybe they were in the middle of writing this incredible opera, but they're really, you know, they just, no one's going to want my opera. No one's going to want to do or listen to my symphony or, you know, or this piece of music. So I'm going to set it aside because I'm afraid, and I'm going to go with this other person and do this collaborative thing, which would be great. So I'm not saying one of those is right or wrong, but if you're making those decisions sort of out of fear that you don't have gifts worth giving, and then you shelve, you know, the thing you're really supposed to be working on, then I do feel like, well, then we're not seeing what you're meant to be doing, right? You're then saying, oh, I'm going to collaborate, or I'm going to join this other thing, or I'm going to take this job that I don't really love, but it's going to pay the bills, and I might hate it every day, and I don't have time to write anymore. But it's, you know, and then all of a sudden 10 years go by, right? And so
Absolutely.
There's the reality of we need to make a living, but it's just an interesting thought about how we can, you know, how do we sort of split our focus and follow, and maybe it doesn't seem like a guru. That, I guess that was my point, was like this documentary, to go back to where we started, is really obvious that it's a guru. They call him a guru. He's their spiritual leader. They clearly worship the guy. And you're watching the thing, and even at the end, like, there's people that still 100%, 30, 40 years later, believe in him, you know, have not varied.
Yeah, you're watching this documentary, and there's people like weeping about the fact that he, you know, is no longer their guru.
Yeah, that he died. And you're just like, and to me, he just seemed like such a charlatan all the way through. But that doesn't matter. Like, the thing is that just be aware of the ways in which we tend to look for that in our lives, is my point. And for myself, you know, I think about, you know, I have creative work that I do, and I can only do so many projects. So I have to look at, if I do what this person tells me I should do, right? Because there's a lot of that in the creative life and the entrepreneurial life, right? Oh, you should follow this. You've got to do this. You got to post on Facebook this many times a day or whatever. It's like, well,
should.
Yeah. And, you know, I only have so much time and energy, right? So if it's splitting my energy away from what I'm really should be doing truly, because that's my destiny, just to be aware of that and pay attention to that.
Yeah, no, I think that's super powerful. And I think, too, to tap into why this is something that we do in human nature, I think it comes down to responsibility. We've talked in this musing about responsibility and how, like, I've used the analogy, the best way to really take ownership of your life as a whole. The analogy of the light bulb, like, the quickest way to turn off the light is not actually by switching on and off the light. It's by pulling the plug. It's by just cutting the cord. And so in our lives, the easiest way to take ownership of everything that's happening in our life and to really, like, identify where it's coming from is to take responsibility, to recognize that we are the cause and creation and source of literally everything that happens in our life, whether it's good or bad.
Right.
And so when you're given this opportunity to follow, whether it be the guru, celebrity, political figure, something to really focus that energy on and take away, like you were saying, take away that grayness about life, the results aspect of life, that, because in life, I'm a firm believer that there's no right or wrong. There's simply gray, and then we get to see how we show up based on our results. You know, like, based on what we caused in that day, how did we show up? What were we being? And so in this particular situation, when you can identify and really focus all the energy on somebody else, you're given, like you mentioned, you're given that black and white. You're given that right or wrong. Whether or not it's actually resonating with your internal compass of right or wrong, you're given a firm direction of, okay, we're doing this next. And it fully takes away the responsibility aspect. And I think that's personally what makes it attractive to people. It's that, especially like in this particular instance with this documentary, I was thinking, because of the educational aspect of so many of them, they were so highly educated. So many of them had left really robust jobs, like lawyer jobs or political jobs, which is how they were able to create this ridiculous utopian society in such a short amount of time. But what was so fascinating to me about it is how many of them had broken through what would be considered like the shackles of their life.
Mm-hmm.
So many of them had been trading time for this really impressive life, you know, like
Right.
time and money for this really impressive job or life or whatever it looked like. And they wanted to escape from that into this guru lifestyle that just told them what to do. So that whole circle is really interesting. And when you brought up this topic, I found it so fascinating.
Yeah.
Because it's something we could ultimately, it's so philosophical, we could sit here and talk about it for hours.
That's true. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. And I think, you know, what I found fascinating was that I was sort of expecting all the people who had been involved to now, with the distance of 30 years, to be able to say, oh my God, I cannot believe I did those things. And most of them did not say that. Most of them were still like, that was the most incredible time in my life. And I'm just so sad that he went back to India and they beat us and we had to give it up.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I thought was sort of this poetic, not justice, but this sort of really poetic bookend is what happened to the property. It's now,
this is beautiful. We'll finish up with this because I got to hop into a 9 a.m. meeting.
Okay. Yeah. So it's now a Christian camp for kids. So it's,
I know.
It's still in a sense, I'm not saying that's a cult because it's not, but it's very interesting that the same sort of teaching and indoctrination is potentially still happening there. And that's great.
That's what I thought was the most ironic part of it.
Ironic.
It shifted.
Yeah.
It's shifted. Yeah. Because I do agree with you. It's not the same thing.
Right. It's not a free sex cult. Now it's an abstinence group. But I just thought, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So thank you so much.
I thought the same thing.
Yeah.
I thought it was super ironic.
Yeah.
So everybody, this is my amazing friend, Stephanie Weaver. She is an amazing author, such a fantastic resource. If you're experiencing any health issues, she is the woman that you want to talk to, especially migraines. Thank you so much for being
thanks
on the
for
show.
having me. It was awesome.
I loved having you. You are a wealth of knowledge always. And I hope this was as fascinating for you guys as it was for me. I loved this topic. I thought it was so interesting.
Yeah, we look forward to seeing your comments as you watch it throughout the day. Please do, right? Because we'll check in and respond.
Absolutely. And if you guys are looking for something to do this weekend, if it's a May Gray in San Diego, seriously binge this docuseries.
Wild
and
country.
Let us know what you think in the comments because it's awesome.
Okay. Bye.
It's a good one. All right. Thanks, love.
Thanks.
Good
Bye.
to see you guys. Thanks for tuning in.